welcome our guests, Ms. Trine Piil and Mr. Thomas Lydholm. Welcome, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, good to have you. As a tradition on the podcast show I do in Germany, we ask our guests, what was the last movie that both of you guys have seen?
Okay, I'm very happy to start because I saw just the night before yesterday, I saw a really beautiful film called Mummy by Xavier Dolan. And I was super impressed. I would really have liked to have made that movie. I thought it was one of the best films that I've seen for years. Have you seen it?
Me? No, sadly not. What is it about? Can you tell us something about the plot?
Yeah, but it's sort of a simple story about a woman who has a son with ADHD that she takes home after he's been submitted to hospital for a while, and she tries to make life with him work, and it doesn't. He's a very complicated character. He's very violent. He's also very sweet, and he's very engaging. He's a bright boy. He's around 15. And in the end, she makes use of a section in the Canadian law where she submits him back to hospital by law, by force. And it's not a it's a character-driven story, but the way that he portrays these two characters and then the mother's friend as well, it's just outstanding, and it's so moving and so touching and so well done, and yeah, it's really quite something.
So it is a movie that's could be written by life itself, just the portrayal of a family that struggles with some differences. Well, wow, sounds good.
Yes, see it. It's highly recommended.
I will. What was the name again? Mummy?
Mummy.
Well, the last one I saw in the cinemas, it was actually nothing, because it opened here in Denmark in May, 19th of May, in cinemas.
Yeah.
So since May, I haven't joined a cinema, unfortunately.
Anything on a streaming
Absolutely.
service?
I'm just eating Stranger Things now. I'm a little behind on that, so I'm having Stranger Things now.
Oh, we discussed this on the show in the last episode. Where are you now? In which season?
I only took season 1 over the last 2 days.
How do you like it?
I think it's amazing. It's great. It's great. And it's great because you can watch it in several generations. You can sit together and watch it. I think that's very nice.
Yeah, it is. And you can bring the 70s and 80s to the younger people that never witnessed things like that. And I watched two episodes with my dad, and my dad says, "Oh my God, that portrait is so good. I feel like I'm 12 again."
Exactly. That's nice.
Okay, perfect. Well, you already named it. Let's come back to your movie, Nothing. And the first question I have for both of you guys: what was the intention behind making this movie? Or when did you say, okay, as I understand it, it's a Danish book. In that,
Yes.
I'm sorry if I don't say that right.
Mixed.
Yeah. What was the intention to say, okay, let's make a movie out of it?
You start, Trine.
Well, yes, I will start. I mean, first of all, Nothing has been many years on the way to become a film. It's been a complicated and difficult process because it's a complicated and difficult story, as you might agree with. But I read the book by chance on a Christmas evening in London. I have family there.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought I would read 10 pages to fall asleep. And then I finished the book and I was totally flabbergasted. And I thought that it was really interesting because it was a story that was driven by a very strong plot and at the same time raised a question that I think is essential to all of us, and in a context of use, even more essential, because I am a strong believer that all of us at one point in our life face this question: what really matters? So I came back to Denmark and I contacted the publishers, and the rights were already taken. Mm-hmm. And then later on, the rights became free again, and I bid for the rights with the German publisher Hansa Verlag.
Mm-hmm.
And it was quite a sort of big bidding round. There was 14 other bids, and I won it together with a British producer called Angus Finney. So that was the starting point, but it was really this, what really matters to us, this essential question wrapped up in a super strong plot and presented to you that made me think that it was an extraordinary story to tell and to try to turn into a film.
I agree on that.
It's a much longer story that Trine can tell, because she's developed also the script actually in Germany together with Completion Film and Janine Tchaikovsky. And they brought it actually to a final shooting draft. And then Corona and a lot of problem happening, also still with financing. And then Trine one day said to me, "Let's drink coffee. I have something that you should look at." And we talked about it. And of course, it was a huge challenge, because it was really a great script, but it's also a very, very difficult story to sell even now, because it's a story that it's about our youth, but it's for everybody. The problem or the question is for every generation, actually. So it's really a difficult film to place also in the supporting system. And actually, we have been around at the Danish Film Institute and so on, and nobody really would support this movie, because they were like, who should see it? And we decided, actually, then Trine and I, that we would, no matter what, we would like. We thought this was such an important story, and we decided to make the film, and we decided to make it with almost our bare hands and and some cash.
It's fair to say it's made on a shoestring budget.
Yeah, it is. And with actually a lot of young film talents that wanted to help us, that also wanted to work on this film and so on. And it turned out to be such a great experience to make the film and to finish it. And
so you have a lot of child actors, of course, in your movie, and it doesn't feel like they're actors. It feels like they're like close friends in real life, and then they say, "Okay, let's do this movie together." The chemistry between them is so good in the romantic scenes, in the dramatic scenes, and they portray this so good. I mean, how was it like to coordinate so many children on set? Because you have scenes where they're like all together screaming and shouting at each other, and I can imagine it was hard sometimes to get your scenes done.
Yeah, but first of all, I collaborated and directed the film together with Seamus McNally, who's a very, very good acting coach, and who has a support system of verbs, action verbs that you can use to support the understanding of the scenes with the kids. And because we worked into a specific system that I'm also familiar with, there was a structure to how we worked with them that called for concentration and focus. And they were not left, the kids were never left to themselves to interpret what the scene was about. And of course, that's one of the real difficulties with child actors, that when you have a grown-up who's a trained actor, they give interpretation of the text, and they have an understanding of where the story will go and how to get there. But of course, a child or a young person with very little or no experience do not know this. But by working into this action verb system, they were never left on their own. They were always supported, I think.
We also had a great photographer that was really telling the story together with the directors. Yes. And it was it was quite amazing to see. I mean, we rehearse the scenes and so on, and then he catches, and then we have done it 2 or 3 times. He actually have covered up, and we could have all that physical action with the camera built into the scenes. So that was also one of the reasons.
How do you pair the child actors for scenes that are, let's say, a bit more bloody, to don't spoil the actual scene? Was there like a conversation with them, telling them, "Okay, see, it's I think it was a puppet, and you do that, but it's not harm anything." You know what I mean?
Yes, but I mean, 2 things. I mean, they only got the script in English initially, so they never knew their lines in Danish. They only got the script a few days before we shot on purpose, because I've worked with children and youth before, and the worst thing that can happen is that they are rehearsing at home with their parents because they want to be good actors. So they turn up, and then they have already formed an opinion about what the scene is about, and it's very rarely very authentic. So they never had the script, and then I mean, there was two levels. One is a very practical level, because when you have to chop the head of a dog, there's a lot of practicalities around it. You have to get a vet in to do an injection. You have to work out how to transport the dog, how to swing the knife, this and that and the other. So there's a practical side to it. And then prior to the shoot, I spent a lot of time talking to them about that there is a difference between being in character and being private people. And then we did actually an exercise, often saying coming to your senses. That is just sitting down, concentrating for a few minutes, closing your eyes, being present where you are. And it was sort of a nice way to get them into the scene. And then when we finished with the scene, we brought them out again. So I think we were we paid attention to when we were private and when we were in character.
What kind of a big deal is the source material, the book, in Denmark? I mean, it was also translated to German and other languages, but the original work is from Denmark. So how big of a deal is the book itself in Denmark?
I mean, the book was published in 2000, and it took quite a while to get on the way. And then suddenly it kind of won a couple of big international prizes and was compared to books like Lord of the Flies.
Yeah, I see the difference.
And also Die Welle, of course, which is a German film. And suddenly it became an enormous success, both in Denmark and internationally. I mean, it's translated into around 30 different languages, sold into the same amount of territories. And in Denmark, it has been read as the top 3 books for the past 15 years.
Wow.
In the school system.
So you have to read it in school?
Yeah,
so every children from Denmark knows this book?
75%.
Most people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So most of your actors maybe have already read the source material in school before.
No, they were a little bit too young, actually.
No, but so some of the older actors, I mean, when you have read this book in school, you normally remember it. A lot of people remember it as a very few number of books that you actually remembered. And it's of course very interesting for us also for the film and for the coming life of the film, that it is such a strong film in the school system in Denmark, because then they can add on a film, so they can also talk about the translation from novel to film and so on. So it will I think it will run for the next 20 years in that system.
How big was the pressure for you guys making this movie? I mean, we talked about how big the source material is in Denmark. How big was the pressure for you guys? Okay, we need to deliver on this one.
Actually, not that much, because we did it pretty much under the radar. We didn't bring in press or anything during this process, because we also want to just concentrate and don't make any other noise to the young people's life. So we were totally under the radar, and since we were even not supported by the Danish Filminstitute system, we were not mentioned anywhere. So it was actually in the editing room during that process, we were suddenly coming to be like, wow, okay, this work, and now this also begin to work, and now this. So that's actually where we became excited about what would the life of this film be.
Are there any funny insights from set? Any funny things happened that you can tell us, like a backstage report, some kind of?
We did have a very funny week in the sawmill, because it was like, good morning, kids. Today we are going to take Sophie's virginity. Good morning, kids. Today we are going to chop the head of a dog. Good morning, kids. Today we are going to cut off a finger. Good morning, kids. Today we are going to cut Marie's hair. And we did that for real, and it created a complete psychosis amongst the girls.
Story from behind was actually when we should find the tree. And even though there's a lot of trees in Denmark, we don't see them so often like that we see in the movie. And we were looking for that, and of course we should look near Copenhagen so our transportation and logistic would not be too complicated. And then we found a tree. The only thing was it actually was on the very end of the runway at the Copenhagen airport. So and when we were scouting, everything was dead, and the corona was have canceled all flight, and I mean it was not even quiet. And then when we started to shoot, and the corona started to come up, and the planes start to come in there, and again suddenly when we were standing out there, we must like every 20 minutes or something like that, we have an airplane just over the tree, but we're okay, stop. Oh, so that was I mean.
So your time spots while filming these scenes were pretty short.
Yeah, they were actually pretty short. Yeah. And we had to do some cleanup and the sound afterwards. But I mean, we did it. But it was just a funny thing that we actually didn't thought that would be any problem. And okay, we managed it. It was not the biggest problem, but still, it was kind of stupid too. But maybe also the other way around, because we have been shut down for so many months before that. And everybody has been doing nothing. So when we ask people, do you want to make a movie? Everybody, even ourselves, well, yeah, let's do something. Let's do something. We have been in the cottage on the beach for 3 months. But I mean, let's do something instead. So that was maybe also because we have had Corona, we actually made this movie.
So how big was the excitement at the first day of filming for everyone? I bet it was ginormous.
Yeah, but I mean, it was also like, wow, we are doing this now, and I would say it was more like serious. Okay, a lot of people definitely have their debut as feature film workers. Yeah.
Okay, as we approach the final of our interview, I would like to know from each of you separately, what was your inspiration for doing what you do today, Ms. Piil for you as a director and Mr. Lydholm for you as a producer? When was the moment in your life where you say, okay, I want to do it, and which paths lead to that way that we are now sitting here making this interview about your movie Nothing?
Oh, Thomas, you can go first.
Okay. Back in 1979. I started at the gymnasium in the school, and then I got a job as film operator in the cinema, and run actually I came from a very small town, and I run the smallest cinema in town very shortly.
Oh wow.
Before every social media, before anything, and then suddenly have the key to the cinema. Can you imagine after the bodega has closed and so on, I have the biggest home video screen because I could show that. And actually I started a day where we showed Chinatown in the cinema, and I saw Chinatown as the first movie that I really saw. And I saw it 6 days in a row, and I was just like, wow. Is that possible to make something like that? And then the person who owned the cinema was actually producing movie also, even though he came from a very small town. But he did it in Copenhagen, big success, and also adult movies and so on. But he was just like having that life, and I think, wow, that's what I want to do. I mean, be together with a lot of people, create something, having a crowd of technician working together and coming out with something that will stand forever. I mean, it's like building a house or something like that to making a movie and so on. So that was how I came into it, and then I just never stopped again.
Beautiful story. Like it's like material for another movie.
But yeah.
Yeah, they're good scenes. After hours in the cinema in a small town. Cinema parties, you go home.
Yeah.
Cinema Lydholm on the way.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Miss Piil, would you like to say something about your way of becoming a director, or what led
Yes,
you
I
to
mean,
this?
I have always been writing stories from when I was quite young. And I was experimenting both with poems and short stories and a novel as well. And then I moved to London when I was 18, when I finished gymnasium, and met a student from the National Film and Television School, as a cinematographer, and they needed someone on their crew. And then I gradually, through the National Film School in the UK, I gradually got introduced to this extraordinary way of telling stories where you don't just have the word, but you also have images and music. And I got totally fascinated. And slowly, I began to write film scripts and stories for films instead of prose.
Well, and now we are here talking about your very own movie.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, but then I went to film school as a director because I felt after a while, I remember this very clearly, that it's like creating a skeleton, but not being able to dress it because of course when you're writing, you have all these images inside of your head that is also nice to keep working on and to. I mean, I also sometimes just write. And then I collaborate with other directors. It's also a very privileged and nice position, but it's also nice to sometimes be able to do your own things and see it all the way through.
I see. Is there anyone for both of you guys that you really look up to? Like, I mean, it's a cheap example, but Martin Scorsese or I don't know, Steven Spielberg is still like an inspiration that inspires you guys when for the work you both do.
Oh, there's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a good film is always inspiring, and it can come in many shapes and form. They can be Goodfellas is one of my favorite films,
so
Deer
awesome.
Hunter, but also Diving Bell and the Butterfly, is also a beautiful film. Tony Erdmann is a fantastic film.
Oh, yeah.
But of course, you have
know.
some favorite directors. Even you can have a favorite producer also. But normally, it's the product, it's the film itself that actually make it. So it's a film. When you see a film where you are that have succeeded with the story, then it's just like, wow, great. I mean, we know how difficult it is to make a film that works on all levels. So when somebody do that, I mean, that's the inspiration for me.
Yeah, I see. And I mean, you guys can talk from the inside because you know the struggle and you know the hard work behind making a real movie.
Yeah.
Yes, true.
Yeah.
For the end of our interview, is there anything you guys would like to tell the German audience they are about to see your movie or maybe already see it? I don't know.
I would like to say to the German youth, remember to tell your parents to also watch the movie. And I would like to say to those grown-ups who are sitting and watching the movie, bring in your teenagers to see it because it's for everybody.
Thank you guys really, really much for taking your time, talking to me and making this interview. And yeah, I hope your movie will explode and be like the major success it deserves. Thank you guys so much.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.